do anything. But I was just really humbled when Pastor had asked me because this church means so much to me, and you'll see through my testimony why that is. So for those of you that may not know me, my name is Chelsea Smith, and I've been coming to Grace since elementary school. It's because of grace and the faithfulness of God's people that I was saved and have grown in my faith since. As I was preparing for this, I felt like it was important to share a little bit about my background, as it really portrays God's hand of provision. And as I look back, it helps me to even more appreciate what the Lord has done in my life and how he strategically placed special people in my path for certain seasons in my life. First off, I did not grow up as a child in a Christian home. My parents divorced, I believe, when I was in kindergarten or around that age. My older sister, younger brother, and I lived with my dad, who I have to say is my superhero. As I look back on it now, I still don't understand how he managed to lovingly raise 3 kids, work crazy hours, feed us, and take us on countless camping trips. But aside from that, the spiritual life there wasn't really there. I think he felt like that we had gone to a different church from another denomination. I feel like he felt like the church had failed him. They tried marital counseling through a different venue, and it just didn't work. So we had been going faithfully to a different church, but then that had slowly diminished as we had gotten a little bit older. As a kid, I was very high energy, as my aunt tells me. And early in my elementary school years, when everything started changing at home, with my parents and babysitters coming in and out, and family members trying to help pick up the pieces, I remember getting into some trouble. Usually it was my sister and I. Some small things, some big things. For instance, we would walk to school on nice days, and the babysitter would send us off. And, well, one day we just decided we didn't want to go. So instead of walking to school, we just walked around the neighborhood. And that did not go over well at all. Another instance I am to this day ashamed of is when we badly trashed our neighbor's yard for no reason. And to this day, I can't tell you why we did it. The cops were called, and it was just a horrible thing. And I don't even like talking about it. I don't even know if Josh knows about it. And I remember not long after that incident, I had to go to the school counselor for a while. And this is all in elementary school. This is all before 5th grade. And honestly, I didn't enjoy that at all, going to the school counselor. Plainly, I just thought it was stupid, as I was not about to tell the stranger what I was feeling and thinking. I really didn't even understand it myself. Needless to say, I was not off to a great start in my early years. I had anger, frustration, confusion, and sadness built up, and I didn't know what to do with it. I thought my biggest need was for my parents to get back together. Every birthday when they would say, "Make a wish," my only wish was that my mom and dad would get back together again. As my hopes for that were not being fulfilled and actually moving in the opposite direction, a small invitation came along. My Aunt Karen and Kirsten, one day at Sunday dinner, had asked if I would be interested in coming to Patch the Pirate Club at Grace. As a kid, I remember thinking that I really didn't want to go. I remember when I had gone to my other church, I frankly found it kind of boring and confusing, but I didn't want to tell my aunt that, and I thought it would be fun to be able to hang out with Kirsten more, so reluctantly I said yes. I remember that first day of Patch to this day because it was unlike anything I had ever experienced before, even in a church setting. I showed up wearing jean shorts and a tank top. I remember this because I have a picture somewhere of the first day of Patch, and everyone was dressed in their black skirts and their white blouses. I apparently didn't get that memo, but I felt a little out of place at first, but that quickly changed as I was greeted by so many joyful people who seemed very excited that I was there, even though I had no idea who they were. I remember thinking, something is very different about these people, but I want whatever they have. Even as a kid, the Lord had placed that thought in my heart. He knew I was not heading in the right path, and he knew everything I had been feeling, and he used Patch the Pirate Club and all of the leaders there and my Aunt Karen, Uncle Scott, and Kirsten, and Lindsay, and David to teach me about himself. It was Patch where I first started learning the books of the Bible, verses and songs about God, and that the Lord wanted a personal relationship with me. My aunt and uncle would faithfully pick me up every week for Patch, every single night, and then later for Sunday mornings and for youth group. There would always be Christian music playing in that vehicle. A few years later, by the grace of God, I decided to give my life to the Lord at Camp Lamoka, where Amy, Kirsten, and I had attended together. After getting to know the people at Grace, after experiencing and seeing what peace and joy and faith that they had, I finally realized that my greatest need was not my parents getting back together, but that it was Jesus, who shed his own blood for me so that I could even be rescued from my sin, and so that he could send me the helper, the Holy Spirit, to help guide me. I felt so renewed in love, knowing that I am a child of God and that no one could snatch me out of his hand. After returning from Camp Lamoka, there were several key people at Grace that specifically helped guide me in my walk with the Lord and keep me on the straight path. My Aunt Karen had set up with Martha Woodruff to start a personal devotional and discipleship program with me. Martha would have Kirsten and I over faithfully to go through a discipleship book and to dive further into what walking with Jesus really looked like. After we were done with our book, she continued to pour into us and would take us to dinner and a movie, followed by the best sleepovers. She probably doesn't even remember this, but Martha was the first one to mention to me, hey, you should think about coming to Sunday morning services, because up until that point, I was just coming for youth group. And again, it was just a simple invitation, but that thought had never even really crossed my mind. I was like, okay, I'll come. So I started coming to Sunday morning services with my aunt and uncle. And Martha sent me and continues to send me birthday cards in the mail. After I got saved, she had sent me my very first Christian CD, Jeremy Camp. And I would put that thing on repeat and listen to it over and over again as my love for Christian music started to develop. Tori was another huge influence in my life in my early years, early on through youth group mainly. She simply took an interest in me, and I looked up to her faith. She was purposeful in doing small things just to let you know she's thinking about you. One small example is when she left me a gift with a verse on it that I had tacked on my wall all throughout middle school and high school years. The wicked flee when no one pursues, but the righteous are as bold as a lion. Proverbs 28:1. Amy Dawson, Hurlbut then, and I were in the same grade, and looking back, I'm so thankful that I had her by my side in my high school years. She was a good, faithful friend who I know that the Lord had blessed me with to continue to encourage me, to keep me pressing forward, that it's okay to be set apart for the Lord. And I just felt so loved by her and the Hurlbut family. And also throughout high school, youth group was a major thing for me, just going there and having the Bartzes leading at that point, and Jamie, and just being willing to have us come over, and just how they invested in us and loved on us. Youth group is, and I know it's a big investment for the leaders, but it saved my life. It kept me on the right path, so thank you to all the leaders as well. After high school, Mrs. Kazorik was my key discipleship partner. I would go to her house once a week after working at Duncan, and she would take me through books of the Bible and give me godly wisdom. She taught me great life lessons and taught me that a very busy season in my life that it's okay to be still. And jokingly said, sometimes the most godly thing you can do is take a nap, as I was literally falling asleep during one of our sessions. She said, how can you be an effective Christian if you have absolutely nothing left in your tank? Teaching me to invest in the most important things first and learn to prioritize, thinking what does it matter in light of eternity. She was always good at keeping things in perspective. After Mrs. Kazorik left, that was really hard for me. And then thank goodness the Snyders and the Underwoods came along when Josh and I began the college and career class. We had some of the most powerful prayer sessions that I had ever experienced, reigniting a love and desire for prayer that I had never thought possible with a bunch of college kids. They were and are sincere in their love for us. The Snyders took an interest in Josh and I early on and helped us along some really bumpy times in our relationship and personal walks. Both the Snyders and Underwoods made themselves available to us despite having really busy schedules, never feeling like a bother when we needed to stop by just to talk. So as you can see, the Lord put his people to work. The Lord knew my heart, that it was and is prone to wander, and he must have been thinking this girl is going to need some major help. But it was because of the true faithfulness of all of you at Grace that this testimony is even possible. It started with just a simple invitation, with people taking time to look around them and see a girl who just needed some guidance. And as I get older, I realize how hard it is to be intentional about discipleship. Every single person I mentioned had their own lives, but they decided to purposefully invest in mine. I'm beyond humbled by that and just want to say thank you. And I don't know what path I would be on without it. So thank you for living out your faith.